Quebec. And despite what Jeff so kindly said, I don't know that Michael recruited me so much as I was pesky and persistent and kept showing up and showing up. And I really admire Michael. We have a really great relationship on this campus master plan. He likes to say concrete. He knows the buildings. He knows the athletic fields. I like to say wetlands. He thinks wetlands is a dirty word. I think concrete and asphalt are dirty words. So we get along great, which is a beautiful relationship. But as we were going through this, I kept coming back to that history of the land I shared with you before, and I kept pushing on how are we going to connect that. And by looking at our space, we were looking particularly at areas where what were we going to do with this? We couldn't put any buildings here, and that has to be, again, part of our infrastructure and drainage, but that becomes 5, almost 10 acres of our huge campus that really had no purpose or meaning for our students, for education, for our mission. And so we really started pushing on that, and we were developing that wish list. And I really want to thank Chuck and Jeff and Michael for including me in this process, because they really gave not only myself but the faculty a voice in this. And Christine mentioned that process of we had several brainstorming sessions over the last several years, what we could envision in our curriculum, what we wanted, and then coming back and showing them early iterations and taking feedback from the faculty and from each department on even things as much as the art building. Well, we don't want to be super far away, we want to be connected. I had a student ask me this morning, is the distance between this building and this building the same? Because we don't want to walk farther than we walk now. So we wanted that input. And then as we started to look back here, we realized there's a whole world of opportunity in this space. If we use the ecology, we can use it for our hands-on learning programs, we can use it as a community asset, and we can build partnerships. So where this really started for me was a little bit serendipitous. In the last 5 years, I've been so fortunate to work with several students and several groups of students who frankly have just reminded me what my passion was and have pushed me and have said, you need to add this to the curriculum. And from everything from beginning with our teaching garden to an outdoor classroom, to a butterfly garden, to chickens, to bat boxes, to now an outdoor student lounge. These ideas are coming from our students. And it was a good reminder to me as the board was looking at the strategic plan and this master planning process that our students dream, and they dream big. And it reminded me of something that Nancy Webster said about the founding of the school, which was this place, university, is someone's dream. And so as we think about that, we wanted to give the students and the faculty that voice to be a part of this process. And we started investigating and asking those questions of what was here, what could be here, and that really helped bring an environmental element into the campus master planning process. These students that have come before have set that stage, and we really went after the plan with an intention for looking at spaces in the environmental element. And so this last section, we're calling this tentatively phase 1. So in that southwest corner, starting to come up with different ideas. And we've identified 4 themes, let's say, that tend to show up in both the faculty brainstorming, thoughts from students, and then we've done several site visits from private and public schools from the East Coast all the way through the Midwest. And these are showing up over and over in education, but they're not really prominent in any other campus that we see locally. So things like a wetland habitat. Part of the reason we're looking at this is because that is our storm drainage. It has to be able to function for storm drainage, but it can be better than it is right now. It can be functional habitat. We have 100 acres of West Park across the street. We share this land with wildlife all the time. And that would be a good way to restore that land and have something to walk back and look at to be able to use for our classrooms. I do want to note on the concept map, it looks a little bit like a lake. West Park has a pond. That's a permanent body of water. They're getting ready in the next 10 years to add about 6 more acres. So these pictures are representative of what we could have, which would be a wetland area. It would have water some parts of the year, and other parts of the year it would not. It would dry up. And that's really important for how it functions. These would attract, not fish, but would attract amphibians, would attract some of the migratory birds that maybe wouldn't visit West Park because West Park is so popular and busy. So we would be complementing what's across the street and continuing that habitat corridor, but not duplicating what we already are fortunate enough to have access to. Another big idea that's come up is the amphitheater space at the top there. One of the things to note from the master plan is that, remember that Mount University I pointed out, and that has become iconic to the school. When we talk to the students and faculty, we're like, well, what do you think about University? It can't go away. It has to stay there. But it didn't really matter so much where it was, but just that we had a hill, that we weren't horizontally challenged forever. And so that hill could potentially be moved to the south of Fairbanks Hall, and then an amphitheater would be a very natural setting to overlook this landscape and be able to hold the 300, 400 possible students or community events that we wanted to host outdoors. Everything from theatrical events to community meetings. I was joking with the students earlier this morning, alumni, if you want to come back and get married on campus, that could be lovely. But I think that multi-purpose piece of that amphitheater would really add a lot of value to the community. Mentioned briefly that connectivity was a big aspect of campus. The multi-purpose cross-country trail would give direction, would give you an idea of where to go, and at the end there would be something to see when you got there. So everything from a cross-country course to foot trails to having our PE classes be able to have some fitness aspects to campus. So that's going to be a really important component that you see. And then lastly, the one I always get the most eyebrow raises on and the most head tilts and questions, the idea of an urban farm. This is not a we're going to. This question was posed, and what we wanted to know was, do we have the space for that, if we would ever want that sort of thing? And the answer was yes, and we have a great space for that, and it would be right here next to all of that wetland habitat. And there are some decent arguments for why we wouldn't have that. What that's going to look like or be, I don't know, that's kind of the beauty of it. So none of this is set in stone yet, but these are ideas that we have and that we're hoping to start visualizing and really getting into those details in the next 6 months to a year as we start to move forward with this particular phase. Another really exciting thing, not only do we have the environmental aspect with the students happening on campus, but we also have really invested in community partners. So West Park across 116th, we're heavily involved with in their planning process. They're reaching back. They just hired a new natural resources coordinator, Brittany McAdams, who I've been talking to, wanting to work together on what we can do in this particular area. For the wetland habitat, we've made great connections with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, with Indiana DNR, with Hamilton County Soil and Water, who are very interested in our project. Primarily because we're in a suburban area and it's the stormwater drainage, so there's some interesting engineering that goes on and they don't usually work in this space. So they're really looking at it as a first time and are excited about that maybe we can be a champion of that aspect to take to other places in the state. And lastly, I would like to mention we have a partnership with Butler University, their Center for Urban Ecology. We already have some game cameras positioned on campus back in this area. They have a huge citywide Indy wildlife project. And so we're looking to develop those partnerships across the county and also the city and state right now. And I think now we'll have everybody else come up and we'll be starting to talk about questions you may have.
Can we go back to the last slide?
Yes.
Thank you. So, what are we doing now? You're going to hear a lot of news stories from us in the next 6 months. We're going to be talking to you at various intervals through the rest of this year. As I said, this master plan is the beginning. It's a conceptual idea of how we grow into a mature school over the next 40 years. What are we going to do now? We hope to start this project as soon as we possibly can. And the other projects will come along as donor interest is present and as our educational needs mature in that area. But this is the one thing that is going to transform the school immediately, and it will be coupled with and help implement our overall plan to increase our connectivity to this community and increase the students and connectivity with the environment in which they exist. We hope to build traffic through our property to make people aware of what we're doing here and to have our students use that to become more aware of this community. So that's the overall picture. We'll be happy to talk further about anything in particular you want to talk about.